This video is going to be part 3 of the midterm exam review, and part 3 will be the final part of this series of the review videos. There is one more set of questions, and I'm still going to leave that set just up to you. But let's go through these questions. So this is set 3. And the first question is, what is pragmatism? Give a definition and example of how it works. And then it goes on to ask, what is the relationship between pragmatism and evolution? Explain both the similarities and differences between them. Okay. So in all these questions here in this set deal with pragmatism. Pragmatism is William James's answer to the stalemate between rationalism and empiricism. He says neither side's going to win. None of the sides could win. If we're going to have progress, we need a new philosophy, and he says it's going to be pragmatism. And what is pragmatism? Well, pragmatism is about a different way of looking at the world, right? For William James, every philosophy is a different way to look at the world. This particular way of looking at the world is through the lens of tools, instruments, and their usefulness to us, whether or not they can do something for us, if they make a difference in our lives. One way of sort of defining pragmatism the way that I use is I take sort of 4 elements. Now I'm on the spot to try to remember all those 4 elements. But meaning is one, significance is one, truth. No, the 4th one, right? Because I'm recording and making a video. Meaning, significance, truth, and 4th one. This is the problem. Leave that one blank. Filled in. Are all determined by the utility and usefulness. By utility or usefulness. So the way in which everything becomes determined, what something means is just what it can be used for. The significance of something. And I think I remember importance. The significance, which is sort of a combination of meaning and importance, and that whether something has any significance at all is whether or not it's useful to you. Whether it's true, even truth itself becomes a pragmatic truth. If it works, it's true. If it doesn't work, then it's not true. And importance. Any way in which we value something, either as being beautiful or something that's just special to us, it's all because of how useful it is. Okay, so this is sort of how we can begin to understand pragmatism as a way of seeing the world where everything is seen as a tool, as an instrument, and the usefulness or utility of something will determine all these different aspects: meaning, significance, truth, importance. Okay. So what would be an example? We could kind of talk about anything. Anything that is useful to you, you could bring up as an example of, in pragmatism, this is now important. or significant or true or is meaningful because it's useful to me. And you could bring up as an example something that is not useful to you and say why that show how using pragmatism it lacks meaning. It's not significant anymore. It's false and it's not important. And we can apply this to beliefs. And this is really important to William James, is that all our beliefs can be judged on this basis. Usefulness. Is it useful to it? Does it make a difference? Alright, so what is the relationship between pragmatism and evolution? Well, both of these come to be ways to explain change, how things can change. William James' pragmatism is a way to open up philosophy to change, to get beyond its stalemate. And evolution is also a theory that helps to explain how the biology, the species of the planet have changed and how they will change. So there's a connection there, and William James is working off of evolution. It inspires him. He wants to apply it to philosophy. So I say explain both the similarities and differences. For the similarity part, I think you probably want to talk about change in some way there. But they're both theories and they're trying to explain change. What about the differences? Again, there's many things you could write about here. One of the differences that I think is really important is that in evolution there is natural selection. And I don't think that's a great term, because it sounds like somebody's making choices when we say selection. But that's not the case. The whole idea of evolution is that no one is picking and choosing what features are going to be retained over generations in a species, and that eventually change that species into something different, or that different species develop that had a common origin, perhaps. So natural selection is one way in which the change occurs. And it's not really about somebody choosing, it's more about the circumstances in which that species is trying to survive and reproduce. And that the circumstances in which they happen to be within are going to cause certain features to be selected because they better allow the members of that species to survive and to reproduce. Okay, so natural selection on the side of evolution, but on the side of pragmatism, we don't have really a natural selection, we have a human selection, because William James is asking us to embrace this new philosophy and to reevaluate all our ideas and to pick and choose which ones we're going to keep. No longer based on an empirical method or an empirical truth, the truth of correspondence, and no longer using rational truth, rationalistic truth, this truth of coherence, but the new pragmatic truth, the new way to make decisions is based on utility, based on usefulness. So on one side we have natural selection, which is really not some entities making a selection, but based on the circumstances. And the other, in pragmatism, we have human selection. And so that's a big difference, I think, that you could write about, trying to distinguish between pragmatism and evolution. We don't talk about this a lot in class, but there's a real dark side to evolution. And William James is really just working really off of the positive aspects of evolution, that he thinks it allows us to, we can use the ideas in evolution to try to evolve philosophy and advance it and bring novelty and newness to it. What are some of the negative sides to evolution? Well, two things are scientific racism, that some use evolution to justify, and the other is eugenics, right? That we can try to use human selection in evolution to create some super human. So this is a negative side to evolution that we should also bring over to this philosophy of pragmatism, and see if there's sort of a corresponding negative aspect to pragmatism. This leads us into the next question, which is going to look a little bit at a critique of pragmatism, one we did talk about in class. But before I get there, we need to take a little break. We have a little commercial, and I just want to say that philosophy starts with P, and peanuts start with P, and both of them are P-nutty.
You know, wherever Peter Pan peanut butter is served, the same thing happens. Everybody has a good word for Peter Pan.
Peanuttiest.
Peanuttiest.
That's the good word, peanuttiest. You know why? Well, those Peter Pan people are mighty picky about peanuts. They start with the best grade. Then, through an exclusive process, they remove peanuts that may not be sweet enough, tender enough, fresh tasting enough. Only the choicest of the choice, the peanuttiest peanuts. The sweetest, tenderest, freshest tasting peanuts go into Peter Pan. This means Peter Pan costs a little more, but oh, the eating is worth it.
What's a good word?
Peanuttiest?
Enter.
Alright, that went a little bit too fast. I forgot that I was supposed to take notes on this side, on this screen. So I just added these in. Both explain change. Then we had natural selection. There's human selection. Determined by circumstances and how you ability to survive and reproduce with human selection, which is conscious willful action and picking and choosing. Big word for voluntary. Okay, so we want to get to question I now. And question I is similar in some ways. The first part is the same as question H. What is pragmatism? Give a definition and example of how it works. It's the same as question H. I'm not going to go over that again. But the second part is how would Oisa critique William James's pragmatism? So we studied Oisa earlier in the semester when we were studying ethics, and he was a part of this third ethical theory, virtue ethics, and we read some of from his book, The Soul of an Indian, and in that book he gives us a critique of the new America. And so he sees them both as a first American and a new American. He lives in two worlds. And so when he offers this critique, he's also critiquing himself. And what did he say there? Well, he talks about the instrumentalism, right? That the new American only finds value in what you can do with things, only sees instrumental value. So, the new Americans, and he includes him as a new American. It's important to point that out, that he's being he's critiquing himself here, along with all of the new Americans. Claims that the new Americans only see instrumental value, right? That something's value is just in what it can do for you, what it's worth, and the ultimate thing is money, because you can use money for anything. But this is from his first American culture. He learned about other kinds of value. And he says the new American is blind to this value. And he said that this value could be called intrinsic value. So in his Native American upbringing, he was able to see the intrinsic value of something like a pebble, right? A little tiny piece of stone that they're everywhere, and they're pretty worthless to someone who only sees value, instrumental value, because you can't really do anything with them. And so people just step on them and don't think about pebbles. He said that in his Native American upbringing, he saw incredible, infinite value in that pebble. And we talked a little bit about where that might come from, and that pebble is a part of nature. It's a part of something that he did not create, and it's a part of this entire natural world, something much greater than him that he also was a part of, and he could begin to feel that connection from something like that pebble. There's some greater mystery, greater than himself, and that there was incredible value there in that. We might not be able to use the pebble for anything, but that connection that he experiences through that pebble is has unlimited value. So he's arguing that the first Americans, who are very instrumental, have become so instrumental that they don't see any other kind of value. He says you might miss out on something. You might miss out on the value of a forest. If all you see when you look at a forest is that, oh, I could chop that down and use the lumber. And soon you may have no more forests. And then you've lost something of immeasurable value from this other perspective. This critique can be applied to William James and pragmatism. Right? Because pragmatism is all about valuing something through its usefulness, through its utility, how well it's an instrument to get us something. So Isa's critique of pragmatism is that if that's the only way in which we see the world, then we become blind to many other kinds of value that we might not want to lose. Okay. So, that is question I. And we have actually time for another commercial. And I know it's hard to find toilet paper right now. And so here is another option.
Whether you're off for a week or a weekend, be sure to take along Scotties, because new wet-strength Scotties are the perfect companions on any journey. Driving is safer when the windshield's clear, and Scotties clean off windshield and mirror without leaving annoying lint. And Scotties come in handy for retouching your makeup. They're so strong they don't crumble or shred. And ice cream along the way is no problem when Scotties are in the car. Because they have wet strength, Scotties absorb drips and stay strong even when wet. You can prove their wet strength for yourself with this simple tap test. Hold any cleansing tissue without wet strength under a running faucet and watch what happens. When water touches it, the tissue falls apart. It practically dissolves. Then hold a new Scottie under the faucet. You'll find that it actually stays whole, doesn't tear. This is the wonderful wet strength you get in Scotties. This summer, keep a good supply of Scotties on hand. Get the family size and several of the handy vanity size boxes. New Scotties with wet strength are another fine paper product by Scott.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I've always been a little uncomfortable with this company. My first name is Scott. And so it was kind of cool to walk through the supermarket as a kid and see your name on all these products. But then it turns out that the main product your name is on is toilet paper, which we're all trying to get right now. And that causes a lot of teasing for a kid when people make that connection and then get to say they're wiping themselves with Scott. Okay, not something we want to think about any further. We want to get to question J. And question J starts off just like H and I. It asks, what is pragmatism? Give a definition and an example. And that example is just, again, about sort of evaluating something through pragmatism. So saying that here's how we would understand whatever it is, by how useful it is to us. And pragmatism really applies to everything, but an important thing it's going to apply to for William James is to your beliefs and whether or not this belief or that belief is useful to you. Okay, so that's the first part. We've already gone over that. The second part of the question: explain how pragmatism is a solution to the battle between empiricism and rationalism. So what are you going to do here? Well, you need to sort of rehash a little bit of some of what we talked about in part 2 of this video series, and that's the stalemate between empiricism and rationalism. That they make these arguments against each other, and that both sides have really, I think, powerful critiques of the other side. And so both empiricism and rationalism take critical hits, and therefore, what's happening there? My screen flashed and thought everything was falling apart, but it looks like we're still up and going, and I'm just going to continue. Alright, so we have a stalemate. Right? Both sides have good arguments against each other, and therefore neither side is going to raise the white flag and surrender and say, okay, you've convinced me. So we have a stalemate. The pragmatism, how is pragmatism then the solution? Well, it gives us a third option that says maybe it doesn't matter who's right. Maybe we're never going to solve this debate. Maybe it's never going to be definitive that one side is going to prove the other side wrong. And therefore, maybe the best thing to do right now in this situation is to stop thinking about what's true. Don't be so caught up about who's right. But instead, just figure out what works for now. What's going to work for us right now, whether or not it's true or not. Just what's helpful to us. What's going to be useful to us in our goals. Right? Because both sides seem to share a lot of goals. To gain knowledge, to survive, to all the promises of progress. There are goals on both sides. And so the solution, William James, is just to sort of abandon your contest over who's right. You just concentrate on what are our goals and what can help us achieve those goals. So it's a solution to the battle because it argues that we should just stop fighting and concentrate instead on what's going to help us to reach our goals. Okay, so I think, that's where you want to go with that question. You want to sort of rehash a little bit that there's a stalemate, why there's a stalemate, and then that pragmatism with its new way of judging things offers an opportunity for either side to give up the battle and just focus more on progress, on what's helpful to us in reaching our goals. Okay. Hey, maybe that's happening right now. Maybe right now in this country, the different political sides that are stuck in a battle and a stalemate are saying, you know what, let's stop this fight and let's just figure out what our goals are right now. What is going to be best for the health of the country, and let's just do whatever we have to do to make that happen. And whatever works, we'll do right now. We're not going to worry about whether or not it's empirical or rationalistic, or whether it's Democratic or Republican. We're just going to see what works and do that for now. So perhaps that's happening right now, is that there's this pragmatic solution to a stalemate between political parties. Okay, So that is set 3, and this is the final video for the midterm review. And I didn't write much over here for this one, but I need to rehash the debate between empiricism and rationalism and the stalemate. Then pragmatism becomes a way for either side to focus on common goals and what is useful for realizing those goals. Okay. All right. So again, there still is one more set. It's the joke in the story. Everything that I've said so far, basically about empiricism and rationalism and pragmatism, is going to show up in those 2 questions. And you kind of just have to find what they map to and explain that. All right. Hopefully you now will finish your midterms. I'm looking forward to reading them. And we're going to move on in the course to Plato. Should be a lot of fun. Alright, I will be connecting with you soon.